So a while ago, I made a 24-page document that explained how to convert indicators from NT7 to NT8. It was in 3 parts, and it took me a couple of weeks to make. But the thing is, no one seemed to take me up on the offer to, you do the first part, you do most of the grunt work, and somebody else will come along and do the rest of it. And I started wondering if maybe that's because even though I spent all this time on this document trying to make it as understandable as I could, it still wasn't understandable enough. And nothing beats a video explaining step-by-step process. So if nobody takes me up on it this time, then I've done everything I could. But what I want to try to do is duplicate that document in 3 separate videos. I had 3 separate parts of that document, so I'm going to make 3 separate videos. I want to try to explain everything you need to know to do most of the grunt work, which is basically going through the strategy wizard, doing the plots and entering the properties. The properties are huge. If you can do that, and of course you have to do the plots too while you're in there, then somebody is bound to do the on-bar update stuff, which is basically, that's where you need to know C# to do most of that stuff. And most of the time it's going to be a copy and paste from NT7 to NT8, fixing all the compiler errors. So that'll be part 3. The second part, which I'll make into a second video, is making your strategy indicator so that it comes out like it did in NT7, so that when you open the properties window, things are readable. You can tell they have meaningful names. Each property has a meaningful name to it. It's organized, and the descriptions are in there, and some other things that I can show you then. And then the third part is basically making it so it works, which is converting on-bar update and a couple other things. So most indicators we should be able to get converted if people are willing to do some of the work. Some of the ones we probably aren't going to be able to do. And those are the ones that probably an easy way to tell is if it overrides this plot override. It's a virtual method that uses a graphics object to draw things on the screen. Custom drawing is what it is. Plot got replaced in NT8 with the onRender call. It's also an override. And it uses sharpdx objects, and those are very complicated, and you'll probably get people to pass on those too, but that's an easy way to tell whether or not you want to waste your time going through the property wizard or not. The indicator wizard is seeing if it has this plot override. So this is an example of that. So let's get started. First, you need to organize your workspace so that you can view the indicators. And I had this, we're going to do Mac Deluxe 32 here. Somebody posted that a while ago, and it has a user-defined type that you're going to see in the properties. And I wanted to include that so that I could explain that, because if you have no knowledge of C#, you're going to get stuck on that and not know what to do. So I wanted to cover that, and that's why I picked this indicator. I like to use Visual Studio, but you can also bring up your an indicator window, which you can get by going to Tools, Edit, Indicator, and then scrolling to the Mac Deluxe 32 and bringing that up. What you need to do when you go through the Properties wizard, you need the properties that you're going to be copying. But you also need access to the defaults, which are way up at the top, and it's kind of a pain to scroll back and forth each time, so I like to have them visible in mine. So you can have either this indicator editor up, and you just bring the indicator dialog up here, and then you've got your defaults here that you can refer to while having the properties. But that's one of the problems, is you switching back and forth probably isn't as easy because you've got that in the way. It won't let you do that, but the easiest way is to have Visual Studio, because it has this cool thing here that you can split the screens with. See, if you hold this down and then drag it, it'll split there, and that way you can have the variables on top and everything else down here while you go through the indicator wizard. So that's what I'll do. So the first thing you need to do is bring up a new indicator NinjaScript editor, and then click here for new indicator. So this wizard will guide you the process of creating a new indicator. So click Next, and the name of the indicator is this class name, Mac Deluxe 32E. So copy that, and then the description goes in the next box. So copy that, or you could just leave that there. If you've got it, you might as well copy and paste it. And if not, it'll copy whatever is in this box as the description. So just might as well copy that. So then click Next. Now the calculate is basically in indicators. I'm sorry, initialize. And calculate on bar close was the Ninja 7 version of that. And when it equals false, then for NT8, they've got this into an enumeration where false is analogous to on each tick, and true is analogous to on bar close. On price changes new in NT8, and if you want to look that up, you can look that up in the NT8 documentation, which is online. It's almost like on each tick, but doesn't get called quite as often. And they've got a thorough explanation of that. But for the purposes of converting NT7 indicators to NT8, we're going to stick with on bar close and on each tick. And in this case, it's on bar close. And besides, when you load this indicator in on your chart, you can always be able to pick this value for the calculate parameter. So then open more properties. I usually display in data box. You're going to look in the rest of these to see. I wonder if adaptive CFCI has more things to show you. So overlay, that's one. Overlay defaults to false. That is not on here, so you'll have to draw that on here. Display in data box. If that's false, then you'll make it false here. You'll uncheck that. If paint price markers is true, then you'll paint price markers. You'll check that. Here it's false, but this isn't the one we're doing, but I'm just using this as an example. So basically, you just look in initialize, see if anything is similar, and either check it for true or uncheck it for false. I don't know what grid lines does. I've never checked them, so I always uncheck them. And scale justification right is the default. Scale justification is having this scale on the right hand side, and it's always on the right usually, so just leave it on the right. So then you click Next. Additional data series. If you want to add a custom data series, you'll rarely do that. I've never done it, so we'll click Next. These are your overrides. Every single one of these methods where it says override might have something in here like that. If you see anything in here that has an override, like on startup is an exception. That's analogous to something an on state change, and I'll cover that in the third video. But sometimes you might see these. Usually you won't. And if you do, just check the box. Converting that'll be covered in the third video, or not, depending on if I can find an indicator that has something like this. Usually you never even see that. So most of the time you'll leave these unchecked and click Next. So now we come to the input parameters, and that's where I was mentioning how you need properties on one side, access to properties, and access to the defaults. These properties, these first properties, usually these data series properties have to do with the plots. So in this one, this indicator, we have 4 plots and a line. The way Ninjatrader makes access to the values of these 4 plots is through making it public here. The first indicator in the list is value 0. And that hasn't changed from NT7 to NT8. The second plot listed, it's in numerical order. The order is important. The first one is value 0. The second one is values 1. The third one, they all correspond to values 2. The third one is values 2 because it's index-based. 0 index is the first one in the C, all the C languages. And the histogram is the fourth. And this name means something too. Well, default is for the MACD. So they named it histogram and they made the names match. So that's what these are for. Your first real property comes after these data series accessors, and that's the one we want to start with. So the first one is going to be the fast parameter for the MACD. So in this window you hit add, and then the name is fast. And it's important that you get this name exactly right here, because in OnBar Update, when we go to copy and paste the code, if this name isn't exact, then we're going to have to change all of them, and I can see myself actually not wanting to do that. So make sure this exactly matches that. The type here, that's the part where C# novices will probably get confused. This type is important. The 4 types that we'll be dealing with, well, 5, there's a, ooh, they put a time. Latest version has a time object in here. That's different. So we've got bool, double, string, int, time, and brush. So most of the time you're going to deal with Boolean, doubles, strings, ints, and brush. Brush is the color. So when you see a color in here, and we'll get to that later, you're going to choose brush. So here for int, now the default value is what you wanted here to do, so you won't have to scroll back up. The default value is 12, so we'll put a 12 in there. The minimum description, you'll see that in this math max right here. This 1 is the minimum value for fast. So pretty much any of these properties where there has a plot, if it has a 0 plot, it's probably going to crash. A 0 value for the plot. Well, it won't necessarily crash. It can be 0, I guess, but doesn't make much sense to be 0, so you want it to be a 1. Fast should be a 1 for the minimum. And that's going to be a range check. It'll put that in there, and you'll see that when you get through the wizard and you build it. And the description is here, the number of bars for fast EMA, and you'll want to copy and paste that. And then we're done with that. And there is our fast parameter. Second parameter is slow, so we'll copy that, click add, paste that. If you copy and paste, you can't go wrong. So number of bars for slow. The default for slow is 26, and the minimum again is 1. So we'll leave that there. That one's done. The next parameter is smooth, so we'll copy that. We'll hit the add button. Smooth. The default is not, it's an int. The default is 9, and the minimum again is 1. And we want to copy and paste the description. Smooth is 9. So 12, 26, 9, 12, 26, 9, fast, slow, and smooth. The next value, parameter, is a Boolean, show MACD. So we'll click add, we'll click show MACD, bool. The default value for show MACD is true. And the description is show the MACD in the signal line. And I'm not sure about that description, but that's what we're doing, so we're converting it as is. So we're going to leave it. And the next one, and we're just going to go all the way down and do all the rest. It's true. Okay, here we start our colors. This type is color in NT7. Like I was telling you earlier, the MACD rising color. This is the color for MACD rising. So when the MACD falling color is red, the rising color is this LA Dodger blue, I think. I don't know what color it is. It's a bluish color. And that's what it does. So we need a color for rising, we need a color for falling, and that's what this one is. In NT8, that is a brush. So we're going to copy MACD rising, add a new parameter, paste that there. We're going to select brush for that. So MACD rising, we can see that it's deep sky blue. These colors are all the same, whether it's a brushes type or a color type. So for this, we can hit the drop down and get rid of that ugly orange. I hate that color. And find deep sky blue. Deep sky blue is somewhere right there. Deep sky blue. And then the description is MACD rising. MACD rising, deep sky blue, brush. Okay. The next one. You can skip over MACD serialize. The wizard does this for you. You still have to do this in NT8, but the wizard will do it for you. You don't have to worry about it. So it'll use the variables you created, so you can just skip right over that and go to MACD falling. That 2 is a brush. MACD falling is red. And MACD falling. Okay. Now you can see why I'd rather you did this part than me. Alright, next one is histogram uprising. Paste that. It is a color which translates to brush. Histogram uprising is deep sky blue again. Deep sky blue again. And copy and paste that. Make that a little more readable, greater than 0. I think that's what he meant. Okay. The next one is up falling is red. Do this the same as we did the other one. Except falling, isn't that where the histogram is less than 0? Less than 0. And hist down falling. Oh wait. MACD hist falling. Hist up falling. Oh, that's hist up falling. So that he was right. Change that back to the way it was. Hist up falling. Greater than 0 but falling. Alright. And the next one. Hist down falling. That is a brush. And it is red. Just up. Just light steel blue. Alright, that was light steel blue. Got to change that back. Red. Okay, we'll edit this one. Hist up falling, light steel blue. Light steel blue. Where's the blues? Light steel blue. So, okay. Deep sky blue, red, deep sky blue, light steel blue, red. Next one is peach puff, which is hist down rising. And part of this is verifying this anyway before you say next. Brush, and going in order helps verify it. So we need to find peach puff. Peach puff. Sometimes you could type the first few letters and it goes right to it if you type it fast enough. And then signal color rising is also a color. Signal color rising is green. And signal color falling is red. Paint bar's input type. This is that enumerated operator that I was telling you about earlier. When you add this, the type here is MACD PB type 2. Well, obviously there's not going to be any MACD PB type 2 here, so you're going to have to say int. And after we go through the wizard, we'll clean that up later. We're going to use the same type as before. Exactly the way it is. If you're tempted to do PB type, make it maybe capital P. Don't do that, because when we copy and paste on bar update, you won't be able to do that. And besides, in part 2, where we clean up everything and make it readable, they have a display name. This is the display name here, but we're using it as the description. Both display name and description are two separate things. We will make the display name capital PB type, and that did it automatically for you because that's what wizards do. See? Okay, since it's not going to let me do that, yeah, it's not going to let me make it a PB, a smaller case PB. So we're going to have to remember that when we get to type 2, part 2, to change that back to lowercase so that we're not screwed when we go to, well, we're not going to be screwed. We'll just have to change it on all places that it occurs in the code anyway. Either that or name it right here. But it won't let us, so we're going to have to do that. And the default is MACD, which we can't check. We can't put here, so because MACD is not an integer. And so we're just going to have to say OK. And that's part of what we're going to fix in part 2. So that's what I wanted to cover. That's all you can do right here. So that's all. So that's fine. So what we want to do is come through here. We went in order. So make sure we got all the defaults right. 12, 26, 9, true, 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 deep sky blue, red, deep sky blue, light steel blue because we caught it in time, or else we'd catch it now. Red, peach puff. They commented out dark orange signal color. I guess it was never down in here, so we never even had it down here, so we don't have to worry about that. And then green, red, and the one we couldn't do. So there's your input types, all your input parameters. The categories we'll do in part 2. We'll fix this in part 2, and we'll make everything nice in part 2. But for now, all you can do is that. Since we click next. Now it's time to do the plots. So go back up to plots. They're in the initialize section. The first part, this guy coded this properly. In the early days when we started doing things, whenever they wanted to make an indicator change color, they would have a new plot. So an indicator could have 2 or 3 plots to it. Well, that's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is the way this guy did it. He made them all dark gray, and then down in the code in here, he sets the color. And that's exactly how you should do it, so that's good. Glad I picked this one. So the first indicator, the first plot is called MACD. So we're going to copy exactly like that. We're going to paste it. Now, these have some overrides to it where the plot type is in here, but he did it this way, which is okay. And I'm going to put this all on separate lines because I like it like that. So the plot style and the dash style, we're not going to, the plot style is a line. This is a plot as opposed to this is a plot. Add new plot as opposed to a line. That's what this here is. So we're going to leave that plot. The plot style is here, and that is a line. This is the type. That's the value. So we're going to leave this as a line. That's the default. The line value we're never going to deal with. That is the value for where it appears on the chart. Let me see if I can bring up this one. This line value here is 0. So the line value is this number here, 0. It's not the thickness like I used to think. It's not anything, but it's this is the value. So on an RSI, you might want to say the value is like 80, and that'll be up here, and then 20 for down here. And for this one, it's going to be 0, so when we get to it, it can be 0. So the MACD, and then the color for the MACD is dark gray. So we're going to set this to dark gray. It doesn't matter what color you put if they're changing it in a thing, but in the on-bar update. But if you're doing it exactly, then do it exactly. Find dark gray and make it dark gray. So there's plot. The next one is average. So we're going to copy average over. It is a plot. The plot style is a line, and the color is dark gray, just like the other one was. We know those are at the top, dark gray. The next one is also a plot. Histogram. Add that. The plot style, it is a plot. The plot style is a bar, so we're going to change this plot style to bar. And it's still dark gray. They're all dark gray, because they changed them all depending on whether they're up. He's going to be going up or down. The next plot, he has transparent, and you can go into this indicator and play with this. It's visible. You can see the market analyzer. We're going to copy that. We're going to add it. Market analyzer. The color is transparent. It is a plot still. The color is transparent, and it's also a line, even though it doesn't say. But since it's invisible, doesn't matter what it is. You can make this anything you want. But probably a bar. When you look at it, bar makes most sense. But we'll leave it since it's invisible. And you want to make it transparent. Apparently, this may be a value they use in a strategy somewhere. Then that's why they make it. They make it down here. It is accessible from outside the indicator. So it's probably used in a strategy. It's not used in the indicator anywhere. Although it's set in the indicator. It's just you don't see it on. You don't see it anywhere in here by default. So, but we have it here, so we want to put it there. And then that's done. So transparent. So we have 4 plots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last one is a line. That's the 0 line. So we're going to add the 0 line. And names do not like spaces, so we're going to change the name to the 0 line. We can change it afterwards in part 2 to match this, but not sure if the wizard's going to like this or not. We'll see if it complains. It's dark gray also. Maybe it'll like it. I don't know. Might as well see. But say okay. And it didn't like it. So you can't have a space in there. So make this 0 line. And say okay. And even if it does, the name doesn't matter anyway. That's what shows up in the. But we can change that when we get to the name. When we get to the part 2. So that's it for plots. So we double check these: MACD, average, histogram, market analyzer, and 0 line. Oops, the 0 line is a line. Forgot to change that. That is a line. So we have 4 plots and a line. And we're done. Next. And go back. If you want to check your work, we checked it as we went. So everything should be good. Next, next, and finish. The next thing we want to do is build. And as you can see, we already have errors coming up. So you double click this. Alright, I had a quote in there. Don't copy quotes. So that's my problem. I inadvertently copied and pasted a quote into the description, and it didn't like that. So there's no errors, but you still want to build it. So you right-click, get this menu, and hit compile. Or you can hit F5 to compile. Or one of these buttons up here is compile. That one. You can hit that. When you hear the chime, I've got an error somewhere in my other one. So when you hear the chime, this builds every single indicator, just like NT7 did. Builds them all. So when you hear the chime, that means you're done. Now if we bring up a chart, a new chart for some instrument, 5-minute will work. And we plot our new indicator. Nothing should plot. MACD Deluxe 32. Nothing should plot, but you can see that everything is in here under parameters, and making them like the other one, with the right headings, options, parameters, plots, and everything separate, is what the objective in the part 2. So if you do this much, then hopefully somebody will take up the second part of it for you. So just post the CS file. That way, if the way we should be able to do this, we probably should do this, is if the indicator isn't completed, then don't post the zip file. Don't export it. Don't just post the CS file. And if it is completed, post the zip file. So whenever somebody gets done with it, then they'll export it and post it as a zip file. And you will post this back to the board saying what you've done. Did you complete part 1? Did you complete part 2? That'll maybe, if you complete a part 2, somebody might be a little more eager to get onto it. So part 2 makes these all readable, does some other things, and I'll go over that next. And then we'll see if anybody will take it. I might take it. So thanks for watching.